Hello, good evening. Welcome to the club call. Happy Valentine's Day, if that is your thing. If you like it. Some people love it, some people hate it. Ned ate it. Ned wants it stolen with the 31st and the 30th of February. Just fair play. But hello, good evening. If you're having a nice Valentine's Day with your partner, enjoy. If you're here listening to us, then enjoy. Enjoy. Still no news. Not that we really expected it, but yeah, there hasn't been any at the moment. Are we expecting it this week, Pedro? What's your gut feeling saying? This week or next week? Can't be much longer than that, can it? So
who knows?
Who knows? I mean,
they know. Do they know? Do they know? Is it strategical?
I don't know. Sure.
Are they all gonna? Is Richard Masters gonna go on an all-inclusive holiday and just put it out the next morning?
I don't know, to be honest. I mean,
just saying.
He's had a difficult time. Got to remember, he's had a difficult time. It's difficult, mitigating circumstances with the Ukraine. Russia conflict and COVID, it's hard to do his job. The money's not as free flowing. All the things he threw out the door when Everton done it. There you go.
He's got a big job. He only earns £3 million a year or something.
Not bad for fourth choice, is it?
I don't know how people live on those kind of wages.
When you're fourth choice.
Because once you've put...
That's how much they paid the first choice.
That's once you've put your kids through, boarding school in Switzerland and stuff. There ain't that much left. You know what I mean? People forget that kind of thing.
It can be tough.
People forget that. Once you've paid all your staff and, put some fuel in the Bentley, it doesn't leave you much left. People forget that. It's hard. It's hard.
It's hard.
Bedsheet.
Anyway, here we are. So if you are an Everton Premier member, get your call in if you've got something you want to get off your chest. Do it.
I mean, it is Valentine's Day.
The EFC Stato posted today, Duncan Ferguson is the only Everton player ever to receive a red card on Valentine's Day.
Believe so. Against Bolton, was it?
Bolton, yeah, when he'd done the Oh no, Derby County it was.
Oh, Derby.
Elbow.
Oh, yeah.
Paolo one shop.
One chop, eh?
I think they beat us 2-1 that day.
I wonder what illegal play they had playing for them that day.
Well, 98. Wasn't it 90... Was it August 97 in that one when Esteban Fuentes scored?
I'd imagine so.
Was by the time the next game came around, he was deported. We got beat 1-0. I think it might have been that, 97, 98. Yeah.
Good times.
Great times. They were the times, though, when you could just discuss whether points should have been deducted for illegal players.
No one did discuss it, though. That's the irony of it.
We just went, he shouldn't have been in the country.
There's a fella, he didn't have a passport, or his passport was dodgy. He scored the winning goal against Everton. It's the only thing he ever did. And he's gone now, but let's just forget about that. And we did. We did forget about it.
If no one... no one asked about it. We just got on with it.
Just moved on. That's the world's a different place now. We're always crying about these wars going on and stuff. God.
Well, I just keep it on.
Bloody snowflakes moaning about wars.
Keeping it at football level. That was the days when you just went okay. You didn't have to worry about PSR. You didn't have to worry about solicitors and lawyers getting involved to tell you whether the point you earned was you'd done it legally. You just, you went out there, your player elbowed someone, he got sent off, you got on with it.
Just got on with it.
You got on with it. Hey ho. Just looking at Everton's team before the UEFA Cup game with no sponsors on.
Yeah.
Manny Fernandes, Yakubu, Lescott, Jojo. You've got Jags, Carsley, Neville, Cahill, Andy Johnson. Look at Moyes playing Manny Fernandes, Cahill, Andy Johnson, Yakubu, Osman all in the same team. Who says Moyes is negative?
I missed those
West Ham
days.
fans. They were great days.
They were good
And
days.
Big Victor on as well.
Everton won games of football, like they were going out of fashion.
Did. And then we beat them 6-1 at home, didn't we? What a time.
Time to be alive. What a time to be alive. Do you know what else is a good time to be alive?
1985 when we won the league.
When Pac calls. That's another time to be alive.
Pac calls.
When Pac calls.
Is that a bit like, yeah, let's go.
That's another, yeah. It's another good time to be alive when Pat calls. Oh, we've got Pat.
Pat's the man, but I've got to put me.
I mean, maybe if you put them on before.
Well, you don't. What happens is, like on normal professional things, you don't go to the line till everybody's ready.
Well,
but
you should have been ready.
Not
I was ready,
and
I think it's more professional at your end rather than.
Not really.
I'm with Ned on this one.
Well, you go with Ned all you want, but
Pat, how are we?
I'm doing all right. How you doing, lads?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. What's going on?
Yeah, been a bit busy. I'll be pretty short today. What are we? I've kind of checked out a little bit since we're going to have this week off. Are we getting any news or any rumblings from either Everton sources, Athletic Echo, anything about any indications, or is it just all rumor mill stuff?
Well, I mean, there has been talk it was going to be this week, but as of yet, we haven't heard anything. I think the media probably felt like it was going to be this week. Maybe someone had dropped them a line and said something, but so far we've had nothing, and also we haven't had any real indications that it's immediate. Like, no, we haven't had any leaks or any follow-up stories or anything like that, any kind of indication. So it feels like it might be strategic in terms of where Everton's game is because it's Monday. So maybe it might be left to mid next week, but it doesn't really take in, like, I'm not really sure why it hasn't happened yet. It's been a good 10 days or so since it finished. So
12.
I don't know why they kind of couldn't have come up with something in that time, really. But no, we're still waiting, and we still have to see how our future plans out. And it could have been a big weekend if we'd got some points back and then got into the game on Monday against Palace. And but it looks like they're not going to give us that at the moment.
Well, of course not. Dickie Dick and the Little Dick Squad are gonna try to do the best they can to view Everton as an opportunity, because that's what I've always felt Everton offer them. A team that's big enough historically and has enough of a household name to make an impact, but right now not enough sort of political power within the world football or English football establishment to really do anything about it.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Whereas Man City can have, of course, and this is what pisses me off, is the idea that the Emiratis were willing to strongly suggest that there might be foreign relations consequences if Man City were to be either too closely investigated or charges were unfair, as they view them, charges were to be brought. So I think that's a little disgusting as well. And I'm sure Chelsea with, Todd and Egball are going to have the same thing because they have American interests. And we know that the new NBC contracts is coming up too. So these are all very important things, apparently, compared to the, just the integrity of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. These people have all got a good stake in the game, whereas you're right, Everton don't really have any sway and haven't had any sway for a while, and have there's you can make an example out of Everton, as you said. We're just big enough that it makes headlines, but we don't have enough political clout that actually we can follow through with it. We don't have any friends in the media, which is another thing. So there's no one really standing up for us. We don't have too many ex-players who make waves, because the generations of players who've won anything are not really well known anymore. We might know them as fans, but outside people won't know them. And also a lot of our ex-players are trying to, I don't know, forge their own way in the media without making too much of a, too much impact themselves. I know Phil Jagielka has been on national radio in the UK this week, and that's interesting. And
he has said some good stuff.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's really interesting. That's really interesting that he's done that. And again, though, it's he has to be afforded the platform. That's half the problem, isn't it? He has to be afforded the platform. Someone has to invite him on to grab those headlines. Said loads of times, like the likes of Gary Neville on his podcast should be inviting someone from Everton. Well, he should be inviting someone from Everton or an ex-player to go on there, right? Yeah, or get Jags on and have a bit of a laugh with them, have a chat, but get down to the nitty-gritty with Everton. Having someone like Carragher fight your corner for you, he's never going to go far enough as we want them, or get over the facts. Because the simple fact is, a lot of these people, whether it be your Nevilles or whoever else, they don't know what we know about our football club. They know about their own football club and maybe a little bit around some of the big stories, but they don't really know what's going on. You see it all the time with some of the things that get said about why Everton are where they are. It's just pure drivel. It's absolute drivel. This idea that we spend fortunes on players, and we all know it's not true because we watch them every week. So I think we need to get that, a few more good headlines for us, coming from some of these really influential podcasts and radio shows and TV shows. That'd be a good start.
Yeah, I think a lot of our former players of the past, from the Moyes era, I guess, would be the ones who would be active now, pretty much. I think that people have kind of frozen out Big Nev because of his activism, I think, largely. So I don't think they're going to ever call him up because he's got a pretty forceful personality. I don't think they like that. They like, easy sound bites and completely useless controversy. So that's why they like, Keane and Carragher and Gary Neville, because that's what they're good at. So they have that. But our players weirdly seem to want to believe in the institution of a fair game, because I was obviously from U.S. broadcast. I listened to Tim Howard on most weeks in the morning. He's not out there defending us. Yeah, Jags was good doing it, but Osman's not really being a big beating the drum for Everton. Gary Cahill, Tim Cahill's not really been doing that either. And I mean, we have some players who are very notable people in this league. But I think a lot of them either were quiet or really believed that this was supposed to be a fair game, and then have been either have been taken aback and don't know how to respond and don't fight for us in the same way that the post Premier League Big Six pundits do for their teams, which I never think should be the way that punditry should be in the first place. It should be an impartial thing. You shouldn't have a Man United or a Liverpool pundit in the corner on a national broadcast. But that's despite it. Our players in specific countries or whatever, on Optus or whatever, in Australia, we don't see Tim Cahill come on and bat for us. In America, we don't see Tim Howard coming to bat for us. You guys don't, Ozzy will be on sometimes, but he's more going to be rooting for us, but not really coming to bat. So I think that's kind of my last point, is why aren't they coming to bat for us?
I think because Tim Cahill is an interesting one, because he's played in so many countries around the world, and he's a good talker, but he's so entwined with the Qatari Football Federation and being part of Aspire that I don't think he wants to get involved in political rows. I think he wants to keep himself as part of this side possible, because he doesn't want to. They don't want to upset people. I'm not in their position. I can upset anyone I want, and because the consequences aren't really that big for me. But for these people, I suppose, someone like Cahill, Cahill strikes me as someone who could end up potentially, and I'm just saying very much potentially, I could see Tim Cahill as the head of FIFA I really could. I think he could, because he's played all around the world. He doesn't offend people. People like him. He's got a certain way about him, and he knows the game on the field and off the field as an administrator. And I could see him being like this a new version of, even though he wasn't an amazing footballer as such in terms of being an unbelievable world player, he ticks a lot of the boxes. And I think going out and like going, this for Everton is, for everyone else this is kind of a small thing. For Everton it's huge, but for him, does he risk a lot of those political alliances that you'd need to gain to get those votes to one day to maybe secure your place? Mightn't be. Listen, he mightn't be thinking that way, but who knows? People like Osman, he's not sort of like in the UK. He's certainly not like an A-list pundit. He's very much like a BC pundit. So he gets on Match of the Day too, and he gets on like certain shows, but he's not like a. So he obviously needs to almost in a way keep his nose clean. He has done stuff. I have heard him when we got deducted the 10 points. I remember that night he was on Radio 5 in the UK covering the England game, and he'd been briefed by Everton. It was very clear, and what he said is what the club had been briefing a lot of people about, and he read it out, and he was pushing our corner, but he wasn't going over the top. He wasn't trying to make enemies with anyone. And the problem is, I'll say it again, it's the conversation over here just isn't being had. It just isn't being had. It's not like we are. If they're talking about us, they're talking about like the whole thing. They're not doing a big thing about Everton on Monday Night Football or Neville's podcast or Lineker's podcast. They're not inviting Everton people on to talk about this. They're talking about us in like, well, you know, they shouldn't have done this and they shouldn't have done that, and it's all an outside. It's all an outside perspective rather than getting inside, and that's the thing. Like they should have. When Neville wanted to talk about it, he should have got someone on from Everton to talk about it, so he knew the exact. 5 Live got Julia Bold on and thought she'd done a brilliant job when she was on, and she's been on a few times because obviously Mark Chapman does a lot with Radio 5, and obviously Mark Chapman did the podcast with her. But you've seen all the controversy. You've seen that Sky Sports had an interview with Andy Byrne that they didn't run.
Yep.
They had an interview with us that they didn't run. It's a conversation people don't want to have, and that's the hardest part from our point of view is that there's so many people who are willing to go to bat for Everton, but they're not allowed the opportunity. So people like us just become an echo chamber. We're talking about it all the time, but no one feels like in this country like it's a big enough story, apart from maybe the day it came out, a couple of days after it came out, and then when the appeal gets heard and the reaction to the appeal, and then that'll be it. It'll go away. I mean, to be fair, Nottingham Forest over here have had nothing, like absolutely, like since they got done for it, there's been absolutely no coverage of it whatsoever. And I'm sure there will be when they are given a punishment when their commission happens. But there has been zero about Nottingham Forest, nothing down to why they're in there. The club have said nothing. There's been no fans saying anything. It's really strange. So at least Everton have had a little bit, but it's not enough. It's not enough that more people are not talking about this story as a whole and what it's doing to football. We've just gone through January and people are not buying players. And now we're being told that like Wolves are going to have to sell their best player. People are not talking about how this is having a really, really bad effect on the ecosystem of football in this country. And it really is having a poor effect. You know, Everton selling their best player, Nottingham Forest selling their best player, Wolves selling their best player. You know, Newcastle might have to sell some quality in the summer. And what you're basically saying to people is if you want to reach a level where you can compete with everyone else, you're going to have to go one step forward, 2 steps back, and you're never going to get anywhere. You're never going to be able to hold the team together long enough that can attack these clubs. And that's the real issue. And no one really wants to talk about it in this country. No one wants to get to the bottom of it because all the pundits are mouthpieces for the big clubs. You know, you've got the attachment, Carragher with Liverpool, Neville with Manchester United, Man City have Micah Richards, Chelsea have maybe Frank Lampard or a few others. Nobody wants to talk about it because
it's high five.
Petr Cech, a high five and Carragher. No one wants to talk about it because it doesn't have anything to do with them. It doesn't have anything to do with the people who were the pundits on TV. Roy Keane, Manchester United, Ian Wright, Arsenal. These are all good people, but they're not asked. They're just not interested in what we're going through. They don't care. And they're going back to a point you said before, is they're not supposed to be biased when they're on TV. They're not supposed to have this biased view, and unfortunately the channels allowed them to be biased. Sky by putting Carragher on Liverpool games, Neville on Manchester United games. That sets the tone of where we are with our media landscape. And like, I've just literally been talking now about like how it is in America with Baz, and said to Ned, you know, you have the situation in the Super Bowl on at the weekend on Sunday where obviously the guy, Mr. Swift, has had a go at the coach, and 3 days later he's doing a podcast with his brother explaining what happened and getting his story out and all this kind of thing. And that's the kind of media we don't have over here. We have
You don't hear from players.
No, you don't hear from players.
A huge issue.
You don't. We've had Stubbs in today. Alan Stubbs will be in the studio today talking about how he thinks it will affect the players because they don't see 10 points. They see Everton in the bottom 3, and that's all that matters. We don't hear from the players. All we hear about is ex-professionals who have a narrative that has been driven by their football club and their experiences. And we don't have that thing where we have a media that talks about things in a generalisation. How would this affect you if you're Manchester United, you get deducted 10 points? How would that affect you? Not, well, I'm not bothered because we'll never get 10 points. And that just seems to be the media landscape as it is at the moment. Nobody cares because it's just Everton and it's just Nottingham Forest and it might just be whoever, Wolves next. No one cares, and they won't care till either Chelsea gets done or Manchester City get done, and it gets done properly, and then you'll see the big thing about it. Oh, we need to change this rules. It's destroying the game. Blah blah blah.
And here's the frustrating part about it, right? Everton and Forest just basically effed up.
Yeah,
we effed up. We overspent over that value. There was, Forest right afterwards, they knew they were up against it and they couldn't sell Johnson fast enough. Fine, whatever. They knew they screwed up, and it's a question of timing, right? Everton, we knew we screwed up. We tried as hard as we could, reasonably, should have done better, or if knew we were really this up against it, the outgoing administration should have pushed to sell more, just because that's how it has to be, but didn't. But despite that, the City and Chelsea cases are about fraud. They're about deliberately lying. They're about improper sponsorship deals. They're about things that should be like in the United States. Those are things that we will see in our monthly magazines. Those are the things we'll see in Time. They're the things we'll see in the Atlantic. Those are those things. These are not everyday news stories. These are like investigative journalists. People get fired.
Yeah.
Entities get collapsed and get folded in by a government entity. FBI or Interpol starts investigating. That's what this stuff. That's the level that Chelsea and City are hiding payments, illicit payments, contained to foreign governments, unfair influence, and trying to influence the government of the country in which the league exists. These are ridiculous. Everton overspent. Yeah, sure. Yeah. We lost more money. Okay, we screwed up. Not even denying that. Not denying our owner was horrible, and we were the first really to protest that. It's more the fact that we're talking about a case of screwing up and going awry of procedural, not a procedural, but essentially competition-based rules, which ostensibly are there for a reason, and people who are literally lying and committing what in any other business would be fraud and see people in jail.
Yeah,
and that was my last point.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I understand when you hear people say, "Well, that's why it's taken Manchester City. It's taken Manchester City so long, or it's taken the Premier League or whatever else to get Manchester City but Manchester City will wrap them in legal stuff for as long as they want, whereas Everton can't and won't do that because I don't think anyone was ever expecting 10 points. But yeah, it's a mess. It's a mess, and we just need it to be cleared up and get away from it as fast as possible. And as fast as we get away from it, the rules will change because the Premier League are well aware that this has damaged the brand, and people aren't talking about the game as such, and are talking about all the stuff and talking about the fact that points deductions could be why teams get relegated, and it does damage the brand. It really does. It damages the brand that you can't buy players. Football is supposed, in the Premier League, is always supposed to get stronger and stronger and stronger and bring in the best talent. Well, if the teams can't bring in the best talent, then you just get that flatness again, and things just keep going the way they're going. That's not good for the league. And if Man City are continuing to win, and people are pointing fingers at Man City, how does that look good for the Premier League? If no one can challenge Manchester City, and yet they're up for 115 cases, how does that help the Premier League? It looks bad. So things will change soon, but whether that comes too late for Everton, we'll have to wait and see. There we go. Is Pat gone? Yeah, he's gone. Thanks, Pat.
Cheers,
top
Pat.
man. There we go.
There you go. James says, Baz, will you be going on the overlap? If you are, when will that be? Looks like the first week in March. So, better get me homework done.
Mm-hmm.
And the defence ready to... better go and take some names.
Coffee, please, Nedrick.
Take some names.
Kick ass. And have they briefed you?
No, not really.
I thought they rung you last week.
They have, yeah. First week in March.
Okay.
I mean, different conditions and, and
different
all
conditions?
Mm.
What kind of conditions?
Just like, unpaid gigs and stuff, But also, it's a different format, he said. So, to be honest, I'm hoping it's a bit more like the thing he is. It's a bit more like the one he's got now, where it's actually with less fans, so you can get it. You can get.
You don't need half of those fans. None of them got anything. Like, without being disrespectful, there's not a lot of stories for a lot of clubs in the Premier League.
No, I wish there wasn't for that.
No, I do.
But what I mean is, if there's a smaller thing, I'll be able to get rid of a few of the myths that are going around. Like, we buy loads of players, and that's why we're where we are, which is nonsense.
Hopefully, Paul Machin won't be there to give his side of the view of Everton.
What's Paul's?
Have you ever watched it back and noticed that every time you talk, Paul follows you. Paul follows you into the conversation. I mean, I love Paul, but he does it quite a lot.
Oh yeah.
He does follow you.
The pat on the head.
He does follow you into the conversation.
Loves you. But he's showing over there. Say it again. Oh, I thought you were gonna, you were on the grass again and rubbing your head like you normally do. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Daniel says probably be 10 points suspended, meaning we get 10 points for the new charge, so it all stays the same.
Whichever one you want.
I've heard 5 back and then 5 taken again. But again, it's all nonsense, isn't it? It's all nonsense because no one knows. No one knows. Celtic Vape said, read somewhere Stubbs called out Sky to support Andy Burnham.
No,
he did. He tweeted, or an X, whatever you call it. Absolutely.
I know what I'd absolutely love, and I know this would never ever happen, right? I know this would never ever happen, but I would love it if one of our current players did that, because it affects them. No, but what I mean by that is they actually do have the power. Like a Taki or a Seamus Coleman literally has the power to go on Sky and say something like that ahead of like a game on Monday night.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And what could anybody say if they did it? No one could. One's the captain, one's the vice captain of Everton Football Club. If one of them said something like that, what could anybody say? That's what would make ripples. If after the game you've got him on live and you go and he said something, how could no one could say anything about that? And that's what I would love to see, but we don't live in that world in this country. Our players are instructed not to say anything controversial, even though this could be for someone who plays for our club, could be a huge moment in their career or their lives at Everton Football Club. It would just be amazingly refreshing if one of our players said something. Do you know what I mean? The manager will say stuff, and he has been pushing it more and more, and fair enough. But what could anyone do to him if he was to say the club? The club would applaud it. The fans would applaud it. I'd absolutely love to see that. absolutely love to see it. Because sadly, as we said loads of times, our ex-players just don't make any waves. But if one of our current players said it, that would probably be the best it could be. Because then then all your ex-players and everyone else would have to talk about it. Oh my God, he said what?
Yeah.
That's when now they'd obviously have to do that off their own back. Yeah. You know, no one at the club.
It'd have to be like a podcast they done and they speak out on it. The club, they couldn't all just tweet. But I'd do
it after the match. I'd do it in Sky interviewing them.
I love this. Like Lee. Someone called Lee.
Yeah.
You broke the rules.
Yeah.
It's only fair you get punished. Yeah. It'd be like breaking the law and not expecting to be punished.
Would it? Because
other teams have been charged with worse offences. But they haven't, have they, so far? Even though they have done worse.
Yeah.
You have to check the rules, Lee, to see whether Everton have broke them. Just ask yourself one question. It's the only question you really need to ask yourself. Without Everton building a stadium, would they have failed the PSR? And the answer is a resounding no. And that's it. You can't, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I might be wrong here, tell me if I'm wrong, people in the comments. I've never seen a stadium run down the wing and cross a ball or score a goal. I might be wrong. There might be stadiums somewhere in the world that scored a goal. And that's it. That is it. Go and look at Everton's numbers. Go and look at the players Everton have sold. Go and look at what Everton have spent over the last 5 years. Everton the third bottom in the net spend in the last 5 years. Go and have a look at the last 3 years. Everton are the only one who consistently post a positive PSR results in terms of player trading. So there's a narrative that all what's going on and all of that. It's because Everton have bought players and broke rules. It's wrong. It's nonsense. And that's just they're just the facts. The rest of it is incidental. They're just the absolute facts of it. But the Premier League is built for 6 teams, and that's it.
And with the stadium, you've also got a situation where rules were changed. So it's like doing 30 and a 30 and then getting a letter to say you were doing 30 and a 20 because they changed the speed limit 2 weeks later and then being done for it.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. But you're wrong, Lee. You're wrong. And we're just here to tell you that. There you go.
But hey ho, what can you do? People don't want to read all the facts, then that's up to them. Right, where are we? Sean says, not a toffee, but hope the club get the points back, or at least some of them back. Points deductions are laughable to begin with, but considering the Premier League have picked on a non-top 6 club is abhorrent. Yeah, the maddest thing about all this as well is that Chelsea have admitted to breaking the rules and have had to already pay a fine to UEFA because of everything they did. The Premier League have got all that, but have walked away from it and gone, we'll look at it at some stage. Why? When they've admitted it, if Everton hadn't, why have Everton been dealt with? Why are they trying to deal with Everton? Why are they trying to do 2 charges in 1 year for Everton when 2 different seasons? You just got to ask yourself that. It's absolutely crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And the other thing as well, and this is mad as well, in all fairness, is that when Everton started to build the stadium, the Premier League, they spoke to the Premier League regarding infrastructure, and the Premier League agreed that you can put that cost, doesn't affect your PSR, and then halfway through building the stadium, they've changed their mind. So you're already committed. You've got a framework up, there's bricks, there's contractors you've got to pay, and then all of a sudden you can't put that on anymore. That is wrong as well, isn't it? And I'm sat here not wanting Nottingham Forest to get a points deduction, because I think once you start that, not mine. Sorry, mate. I mean, you've made me a coffee. I 5:45. I'll be wired all night now. Cheers, Ned. Thank you very much. I don't want Forest to get a points deduction, even though Everton will benefit massively from it. I mean, you're humpback. You start low and stand up while you're still in shot. It's incredible. But anyway, listen, you're entitled to your opinion, Lee. You're wrong, but you're entitled to your opinion. But yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. It's already a shambles the season. The Premier League have ensured that it's like a COVID season now. Really, it's a void season. Once you start asterisks and teams, it's not real. So we'll see what happens. The rules aren't fit for purpose.
They're going to change because of that.
They're not. They're going to change. Masters will lose his job in the next 8 weeks. I imagine he'll be gone, and it'll all be brushed under. Oh, we made a terrible mistake. Blah de blah de blah. But they've already done the damage, and we'll see where we go with that. So it's crazy. It is already crazy. We've got someone on the line. And we'll go to it in 4 seconds because it is Bunzy. It's Bunzy. Bunzy, how are you, mate? You okay? Yeah, can hear you, mate.
Yeah, good. I was on just over a year ago, just before Lampard got the bullet, saying how sad it was being an old ass, sitting in the Upper Gladys Street in 1967, a 4-year-old watching Harvey Kendall and Ball and that, and I just thought, we must be at the bottom of the curve now.
God, I know, mate.
You've had good times, though.
Good times, Bunzy. Good times.
I know. Well, so I can give a bit of perspective on things, really, from being an old arse, and seeing them. I just want to say, though, that Colin Harvey was my hero growing up.
Yeah. What a hero to have.
He read the game. The only one that have come near him, in my opinion, was Butch Wilkins for Chelsea, who could dictate the pace of a game, and that, even though he had Kendall and Ball either side of him, was absolutely brilliant. I seen him going into the Royal a couple of years ago. I think his knees were knackered or his hips and that, and I was too scared to go and say hi to him. So it's a big regret. So anyway, just two points really. The main one's about the rules. I want to have a rant about Handball and that, but just going back to the whole thing now about this, really, the big clubs having a monopoly in that. You had this in America donkeys years ago, and I'm talking decades and decades ago. I think it first started with one of the St. Louis baseball teams, whose owner was the president of the baseball league, and he was just funneling all the best players to him, and they were never losing. And then there was also one, I think, ages ago with the Cleveland Browns, where they went 4 years and they lost about 2 or 3 games or something daft like that. So that's where they brought this salary cap thing in with a lot of the, because it's the only way it was going to make it sort of work. So you're right, Ped, when you were saying, salary cap and people, the trouble with football, it's a global sport, global leagues, and that, you've got to be careful you're not if you shoot yourself in the foot and say,
absolutely,
they're all just going to go off. And the minute, I'm telling you now, City won't get touched, because the minute they get touched, they'll ride off into the sunset with a load of other big teams and start some Super League up, which, they can do. So anyway, but my main thing was all about being an old arse and watching the football. When I was watching the game and that, there was no replays. If you weren't on Match of the Day, you never seen any replays of bad refereeing and this, that, and the other. Yeah. I didn't even know who the referees were in those days, and that you just refereed the game, and I never seen players remonstrating with them in that. And to a certain extent, I do feel a bit of sympathy with referees, because the amount of cheating, where they're pretending to be injured, diving, claiming for corners and throw-ins when the ball's coming out, it's just ridiculous. And there's a saying, isn't there, in rugby union, they spend 80 minutes trying to convince you that they're not injured, and in football, they spend 90 minutes trying to convince you that they're injured, and that's just the nature of the game. But I just want to have a little bit of a rant about handball, and I don't understand. You see, my background's an engineer, so I deal in absolutes and that, and the way the rules are written, they're all up for interpretation, so it becomes subjective. And I even heard on Sky Sports there, what's his name, Dermot
Gallagher.
Oh yeah, Gallagher. Yeah, saying, well, that was a subjective decision. I'm like, what do you mean a subjective decision? For me, it's either some of it's black or it's white, it's in or it's out. But it's like, you know, this thing about the ball, the whole of the circumference of the ball, if he had a shadow above it, it's got to be over the line. And then they showed a picture of one on Sky from an angle, and it looked about 2 foot out.
Yeah.
You know,
so you know,
like,
yeah.
how can you? But then in games like rugby and NFL and that, like, you only have to break the plane, and you know, if you step on the line, just on it, you're out, and that's. But with that, you've got to be there. But then with offside, you have to be, you know, you could have your little toe ahead of them and you're offside. And it's like, it just doesn't make any sort of sense to me. But the thing with handball is, like, in the rules where it gets so subjective, is that they say, like, if it deliberately touches the hand or arm, or the arm moves the ball to ball, and that was the old rule that we used to have, ball to hand, or it was handball, like, you know. And then it says, like, if it touches when they've made their body in an unnaturally bigger, a player is considered to have made the body that's bigger when the position of the hand or arm is not a consequence or justifiable by the player's body movement for that specific situation. And by having this arm in a sort of a different position away from the body, they run the risk of handball being penalised for handball. But when it says things like this specific situation, so in my mind, interpreting that, and this is where the subjective thing comes, is I think of it's a natural reaction. Now, if you're going to fall over, you're going to put your hands down to cushion your fall. You're not going to fall flat in your face.
Yeah.
You know, when you went down, you showed us pictures of your knees and that. Like, I bet when you fell, I bet you put your arms out to stop you.
I didn't. I didn't have time to wreck knees. I didn't have time.
You need to play it out back four then. But it's like, you know, so something like that where you're falling and you're putting, it's like, to me, I would class it as some kind of defensive motion. Someone boots a ball at your face. You're not going to stand there and let it. You're going to put your arms up, you know, to protect yourself. And in my mind, that movement is specific to that situation. So that's not handball.
Yeah. Said it loads of times. If you're a natural position of your arm, the only unnatural position of your arm is when it's not attached to your shoulder.
Chop it off,
Honestly, there's no way.
If they went back to the old rule and said, look, it's deliberate, did you deliberately handball it? Then it's you know, it's black and white then. So if you're protecting yourself, I'm sorry, but and it's like, if you're on the edge of the 18-yard box on the actual dead ball line and you flick it up onto someone's hand, how does that equate to a spot kick with you and the keeper and no one else in the box? Like, it's like, whoa, it's like giving you a free goal, isn't it? Yeah, you know, I think they've got to get a bit of common sense with it. But like I say, when I was a kid and that, you had match of the day, you never had reviews. They never talked about the referees and decisions and that now. Everything, because it's such a huge profile. You know, the game is so big and the players are superstars, aren't they? You know.
But don't you think as well, is like you just said there, they didn't show games on TV, didn't have even match of the day only had like a couple of games on, didn't it? It didn't, you know, they didn't have cameras going to every single ground.
No.
Now they need something to fill the time. Football has become a 24/7 narrative because it goes all around the world. There'll be someone talking about it somewhere live at some time. Now it feels like they need a narrative. It is a soap opera. They need stories. The stories don't. If you look at football and you said, right, what are the stories on the pitch? Who are the people generating the stories? We talk about this quite a lot. You know, sometimes when we're doing out of the shows, like More Than a Game, and you look around at the shirts behind us, there's just these players that when we were growing up and they were characters, you'd pay money to watch those players. We often talk about players we've watched live and go, oh my God, we've seen him live, or I'm gutted I never got to see him live. Now, honest to God, there's about 4 players in the world that I'd want to see live. Honestly, there's nobody out there that I'd go, oh, you know what, even like Haaland. As much as he's a good player, he's not someone I go, oh, I've got to go and watch that game because Haaland's playing in it. Whereas I was like, I remember the time I wanted to fly to bloody all around Europe and watch like Zlatan and all these different players just because of the characters. I have seen Zlatan. He scored past us. I applauded it. No, but like but now I feel like there's Man City have got all the boss players. Liverpool have got a few boss players. Arsenal, they've got a couple of boss players, Man United, but there's no real characters. So therefore, you take away those characters that are not there. Where are the stories? All the stories are financial stories or refereeing stories. There's just no character about the game anymore. I don't think, that's my personal view. I don't feel like there's characters. Like we've just been talking there. Imagine one of the Everton players in an interview said, this is a joke, this 10-point thing, and we want to get to the bottom of it. But we haven't. You know, the NFL you just mentioned there, like you've got at the moment the biggest story in the world almost is the fact that Taylor Swift's going out with an NFL player. It's took over the world. It's like this story. They reckon it's the Super Bowl was the most watched single program since the moon landing in 1916. I know that Basil dispute that.
No, he said it was. Yeah.
No, he'll dispute them going to the moon. But there's no stories in the stories in the Premier League anymore. All anyone ever talks about is the financial stuff, whether you've broken it or what kind of money you've got or what the referee did or didn't do. No one's actually talking about the football because it's shite. Because every week, unless you're watching Manchester City, very, very little happens. It's the Forest game. It was a 3-2 win for Newcastle, and all he wanted to talk about at the end of the game was the fact that Forest didn't get a penalty, which they should have got, by the way. But that was the talking point, not the 5 goals. They wanted to talk about the one that didn't count, and that's what's wrong with the game at the moment. And like you've just said there,
Wenger said this ages
This
ago.
didn't used to happen. We allow narratives to dictate the game, and we talk about the things that didn't happen for days and penalties that weren't happening for days. We don't talk about the football anymore because actually, without anyone noticing, or maybe a few people did, it's crap.
Yeah.
You know, when you talk about there, you also go on.
I wanted to embrace VAR, thinking that would help.
did.
But it's not. It's just giving people more of a reason to spread their narrative or push their club. I'll be fair and call it. Well, I'll be kind and call it unconscious biasness.
It is. That's what it is. That's what it is.
But what can you do with it? It's just like I say, it is broken. I mean, the fact that, like you were saying the other day, that Grealish sitting on the bench, and he's decent, but he's not a superstar. He wouldn't go to Barcelona, Real Madrid, anyone like that. He was worth more than all of our team, and it just shows you how really bad the league is. If you go back to 1930-31, you'll see that Everton came up from the second division that year and won the first division the following year. That was one of our league wins. We came up, we were promoted from the second division, and we won the first division. You know, and like in the late, I think it was still, was it the late 50s, early 60s? Liverpool spent about 7 or 8 years in the second division. Yeah, you know, just floundering around. It's a different thing now. It's the gulf is absolutely enormous, and you're going to just end up with super duper teams, and they will end up with this global league eventually because they always want the biggest ticket in town, and that they don't want to put Dross on the telly. They want the Arsenal, Liverpools, and you know them games. Like
you've just mentioned there, though, it is the American formula. The American formula is they don't actually care about winning trophies. As in the owners. The owners care about making money every single year. That's all they care about. The NFL is...
Well, do you notice who they give the trophy to?
It always winds me up. It always winds me up every year. I think it's the biggest kick in the bollocks. Franchises and all this. It annoys me. But the owners in American sports don't care who wins because they see it as a fair platform where it'll probably come round and they probably will win. But ultimately, it comes down to every year they get that big fat check. And that's
but have you noticed the way they play their leagues, though? They play it in a way, and golf's gone that way with the playoffs and that now. Yeah. They keep it going. They don't want so we're in a catch-22 here. You want the big clubs, but you don't want the league to end. So what are you going to do if it's City? You know, we're lucky that City lost a few games this year. You know, because in years gone by, they'd have had it sewn up by now.
City's the fact that City we talk about it quite often. The fact that City get quite bored in the first half of the season is the only thing that keeps the Premier League going as something to watch. It's those games where they just go, we're bored, and you can actually see, and we saw it at Goodison, didn't we? You actually see the flick of the switch now with Manchester City. It literally is a flick of a switch, and it shows you that for the first half of the season, it's almost just like not half-assed, but they're probably still recovering from the season before, and the manager's allowing different players to play, and at some point he just goes, lads, I'm playing my best team every week, which now hasn't got Jack Grealish, funny enough, as you just said there. And they go, we're playing our best team, and that's it. We've got over the fact that we've let a couple of our big hitters go in the summer, but now that's it. Everyone sort yourselves out, and we're going to go and win this title. And if it wasn't for that first half of the season, Man City'd have it sewn up by now. It's just...
It might be down to the amount of games that they kind of play.
No, that's it, yeah.
The Champions League having all these, they're going to have even more games as well, aren't they now, and stuff like that. So you basically need 2 squads. I mean, we haven't even got 1 squad. You're putting 2 keepers on the bench. If he's not even trusting the kids and that, like.
Yeah, that's true.
I know.
And Patterson can't get on in that.
Can you imagine? Sorry, when you first went to start watching football, right? Could you, if someone had said to you in the 60s, like the late 60s, a time will come in football where 2 goalkeepers will sit on Everton's bench, you'd probably, the first thing you'd say, well, what's a bench? Because they didn't have them back then. But could you imagine if someone had, could you imagine though, someone had said to you, you're going to have 2 goalkeepers, that's where football's going to go, you're going to have 2, because you'd think, if someone had said that to me when I was a kid, I'd go, oh my God, something must be happening in football in the future. I don't know. Like either all the centre forwards are ultraviolet. Ultraviolet. They just blind the goalies. They blind the goalies.
And that's teeth.
Teeth showing up. Firmino in every squad.
Yeah.
You'd be like, why? You'd be like, why did you need... Or the goalies are suddenly so good as outfield as well.
That you have one on the bench. Goalie in and out.
The things that we just accept in football now are absolutely mad, aren't they?
It's the same thing as 4th is success. I'm not saying that when you start to going, mate. Finish 4th, that's your aim.
God, the 70s for Everton would have been amazing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we'd have been buzzing.
We'd been buzzing.
They had the temerity to call it the Champions League when it was like 75% of them weren't champions.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
In the thingy, so... Yeah,
it is mad.
It's a crazy sort of world. We've just missed the boat. We've been mismanaged.
Yeah. Well, we did
years ago. Selling players like Alan Ball and Gary Lineker. I was dead upset with Gary Lineker when he left and that. But then it comes out that the club sold him.
Yeah, it was a
Howard sold him because Howard thought he was going
to be the manager, didn't he? Another Swizz. Well, that's it. It's not a lot of this isn't a new thing. We've self-sabotaged ourselves for a lot of our history, certainly post-war history. We've sabotaged ourselves, thinking that we were always going to be the top dog. I mean, we self-sabotaged. We self-sabotaged that way going in the room, the Premier League.
I remember when we got Tony Cottee from West Ham, and I was ranting with rage because he only scored 20 goals in the season.
We were talking about this the other day, talking about it with Ned. We were talking about I think it was last week on Round the Tower, we were talking about pivotal moments or moments at Everton's history. I actually said when we bought those 4 players in 88, when you look back, the drop-off in those 4 players, who at the time all seemed like decent players, and Cottee was a decent player, but the drop-off to what we had just a year before, and then suddenly those years, then from 88, I know we got to the cup final in 89, but those years into the Premier League years just were like lost years. You couldn't, apart from if they weren't wearing certain kits, and I know some kits were worn for multiple years, but you could pick a game out and you go, I don't remember what year this was, because the team was just a weird hybrid of some of the players left over from the 80s to new players we bought in the late 80s to where it was just like, do you know what I mean? It was like we lost that.
I think we hit self-destruct when the European ban came in, because we let a lot of our key players go.
Yeah.
Now, whether that was for them to play European football or what, but we couldn't keep, because arguably, and in my mind, they were the best team in
But
the
Liverpool
world
never did they? Liverpool bought all the best players in England. Beardsley, Barnes, Aldridge. Okay, Rush went, but he was soon coming home, and ironically to Everton till they stepped in. But again, we went, oh no, you can. We talked about it last week. We were telling Ned about Peter E going to QPR being one of the weirdest decisions anyone's ever made at the football club, because we brought Stuart McCall. That has got to be one of the worst decisions anyone's ever made at this football club. And he went on and had a career for about 6 or 7 more years.
I know.
Crackers, absolutely crackers.
And I'll probably be in that also with a lot of Everton fans, especially the older ones here. I was at the Bayern Munich match, and we sort of glorified that match. I'm telling you now, that wasn't a special match because we were doing that week in, week out. You remember like Sheedy's double free kick where he went in and then he brought it back. And I called it, I was in the upper Bullens then, and I called to my mate, I said, he's going to do the same thing again, bang, straight in there. And I thought, what a foot.
No, it was unbelievable.
So, yeah, it wasn't that special to me because it was a great game and it was a great result and, you know, under the lights and all that. But I'm telling you now, that's what we did in those days. We were absolutely boss. So anyway, thanks, lads.
Thanks, cheers, you've made me feel utterly miserable. But there you go.
Just put some old videos on.
Defo.
We will. See you later. Cheers, mate. See you later. Bye.
There you go. Reminiscing.
Great times. Great time.
What are you doing here, Ned? What's he doing?
I don't know.
Oh, that's good, yeah.
He's just doing stuff, yeah.
You're doing that. I don't know what's got to do with us, but...
The Blues says, imagine raging that a striker only scored 20 goals. Yeah.
The thing about it is, though, Cotty didn't score goals genuinely in the big games. He used to score... He was a flat-track bully. But imagine having a flat-track bully.
Well, mate.
No, I know. Well,
we haven't even got a bully. Never mind.
Someone was saying the other day,
so we haven't got a track for a bully to run on.
Well, listen to this for flat track bullies. Manchester United have only beaten Villa. Was the first time they'd beaten anyone in the top 9 this season, right? And look where they are in the league, and that's by going about beating the teams that you're supposed to beat.
David Moyes had that absolutely down to a T for us, and he's done it with West Ham in general. But it'd be incredible to just have someone who you go, doesn't score for 4 games, but then he gets 11 in 3 games. You know what I mean? That was Cotty. Cotty would be he'd get 9 goals in 5 games, Cotty, and then he wouldn't score for like 3 or 4 games. Then he'd get 4. Now, bloody hell, if a striker had 9 shots in 5 games, I'd be celebrating him.
I know, me. I know. We ask for goals. We don't even get shots from our centre forward.
You know. Oh well.
Anyway.
Right, we've got another call. It's the night for it. It is Alex, I believe. Alex, are you there?
The show for it.
And what do you want to say?
Can you hear me, boys?
Yeah.
We can hear you, yeah. Go ahead, mate. What do you want to say?
Wonderful. Couple of things. One, about Dom.
Yeah,
go on. He had one good season. He's got 18 months left on his deal. When he came back from his injury with Lampard, you could just tell he looked so good. Like those little touches, those bits of hold-up play.
Yeah,
it feels at the moment it's just bouncing off him. And I just wonder, like, I called in a while back and spoke about Iwobi and do we keep him or do we sell him? And I kind of feel like it was the right thing for the club to move away from things we've done in the past where we've let players run out of their contracts and leave for free. You know, we see now with FFP and stuff. What do you boys think about Dom? How would you feel if we got to the summer? We don't know. Let's assume he stayed up. We don't have line of sight to the next striker we want to buy, but maybe we've got a little bit more disposable cash. How would you feel if someone came in and gave us 30 million quid for Dom?
First of all, before we start, can I say that sometimes you sound like Stephen Merchant there, so I'm now pitching Stephen Merchant, so that's brilliant, Alex, but I will now get onto your point.
Last time I called in, I got that lad from that Chelsea guy on TalkSport.
Rory? No, you're not Rory Jennings. No. Oh, okay. No, defo Stephen Merchant, but I'm all David. I'm here for that. If we look at Dom at Everton, 1 goal in 11 in his first season, but it was sub 8 and 44, 8 and 38, 15 and 41, 21 and 39, and then the injuries have kicked in. 5 and 18, 2 and 18. He's got 4 and 25 this season. He's having an absolutely woeful run at the moment. And that, I think, why Alex's touches all over the place. He's not attacking things the way he once was. I think it might be down to a bit of confidence. I certainly think the way we play doesn't suit him. I think just hoofing a ball and hoping that he can do something with it when you haven't got runners isn't really playing to his strengths. I think his best season, Carlo knew that if you got in wide areas and put the ball into dangerous areas and he was there, he'd score. That being said, there's got to be a decision soon, hasn't it, on him? Like you said, we're running out of He's got 18 months left. What do we do? I mean, I think Everton want him to sign a new deal because he's 26 and obviously you're trying to protect the asset, but I don't know if Everton got an offer at 20 million in the summer, 25 million. I'm not saying he would, but just say he did.
I think we have to offer him
what do you do?
I think we have to offer him a new contract first and then
see where that
and then
takes
see
us.
where it lies, isn't it, really? See, the thing about him is, as much as people, well, as bad form as he's in, I just don't know right now where Everton find another striker. Like, and I know there'll be people, and yeah, there will be them out there, but the fact the money we paid for Beto, and he doesn't look anywhere near ready to play in the Premier League.
There's another one though where we just don't create anything.
That's what I'm saying. But I think his general
no,
all-round
his general
game
play's not as good as
is
Dom.
not as good as Dom. And I think if he wasn't there, I think people would be even harsher on Dominic Calvert-Lewin. But I think when they see Beto, they see just pure rawness, and I think that gives you a good gauge of why Dom does play. Dom's been brought through and played, and we took the edges off him while he was playing a lot of the time. If a really good bid came in, the question would be if a really good bid. This is where I think the issue is. Everton will take a good bid for Onana in the summer. Okay. If a stupid bid came in for Branthwaite, they might take that as well. If a stupid bid I'm talking about come in for him. Not saying the kid wants to go, but I think he could do with another year at Everton, because I don't think he walks in any team just right now. I think he should have another year. So the idea of losing them two and then Dom going as well, yes, you get a nice little bit of money in your pocket, but with everything equal, that's 3 of your starting team going, and you'd have to replace all of them in the same summer. And people might say, well, that'd be good because we'd have money to get like a striker first of all, but that's a spine. And that's the only thing that worries me, is that Onana is going to go this summer. I'm 99.9% sure of it.
99.9 what percent, or just 99.9?
Just an ice cream.
Okay.
And that's my only issue, is that if we were to let him go this summer, that's more rebuilding at a very delicate time for the football club. So offer him a new contract and see where we are, but it's who we get to replace him, and I don't know if there's a lot of people out there who would come into this Everton team and score goals, because the service he gets is non-existent, absolutely non-existent. You only have to look at his heat maps. He's never in the box, because there's no need for him to be in the box, because the way we play allows the opposition to step 10 yards higher up the pitch. It's as simple as that. We play halfway in the opposition's half, because it's all long balls. We haven't got the width to get behind teams. We don't have the fullbacks to get behind teams. So and that's why Dom's so important to the way we play, because we play long to him, and he gets the ball and then gives it to the midfield or gives it to the wide men.
He's got 50 goals in 200 games for Everton in the Premier League. 64 and 234. So it was 1 in 4. And the last 3 seasons, he's got 8 goals. He's got 10 goals in the last 3 seasons in 33 appearances. Which is, he had a terrible injury, and he, for me personally, I just think the manager hasn't done him any favours this season. And I know you can say, well, Beto's not ready, so therefore Dom has to keep playing. I think as a striker, when you're playing and the goal starts getting smaller and smaller, you need to be taken out to refresh it, because the more games you play, it is on your mind then. There's more minutes gone by. There's another 20 minutes. There's half time. I haven't scored the second. Yeah. And then you're subbed. Your head goes down again. It's my number. You see it on Saturday, and even though he was getting less and less effective at City on Saturday, he looked disappointed when his number come up, and he's just always dragged off now. Yeah. Whereas I think the manager, like say against Palace on Monday, could throw a little curveball out and give Beto kind of an hour, and have Dom coming off the bench for half an hour, and that might reset it for him. I imagine the manager will start with Dom, but I just think when the runs, 17 games is a long time without a goal. It really is. You're shot with that. You're gone. You're gone. And it's not even like we can rely on penalties because we don't even get a bleeding penalty for them. So,
well, yeah.
You know.
You remember the 3-0 game Lampard against when we had Lampard against Crystal Palace?
Yeah.
And it was just, it wasn't even what he was doing in the 18-yard box. It was those little touches on the halfway line.
He was brilliant.
It's almost like that. They're the bits that I miss with Dom. I'm like, bouncing off his foot, trying to take the ball in. You're like that. They're the bits we need him to help us to get yardage up the pitch, even if it's not necessarily goals. And that's the bit I'm just watching and thinking, that miss was it actually against Crystal Palace in the FA Cup where he just skied it over? I think he thought he was offside or something, but he just blazed it over from about 3 yards.
Newcastle.
Oh,
yeah.
Look, maybe this stuff with FFP is part of the issue because who was the lad from Coventry who's gone on to Portugal and scored about 100 goals?
Gyökeres.
We were talked to get him. Maybe it is Dyche not helping, but I just look at the Everton team now under Dyche, and I look what's going on with West Ham and Moyes, and I'm thinking, Tarky's got better, Branthwaite, Mikalenko, Garner, Idrissa Gueye, Harrison, Dwight McNeil, last season particularly. I think he's made all of them look better. We look like we're actually trying to do something. It's just there's certain players that you think, like Dom, and you think for whatever reason he's just not kicking on. And right now, with where things are, if you're not kicking on, you just need to get gone. I hate the idea of us getting rid of Dom. I love Dom, but it's like if you're not doing the business,
I think
and
though,
you're considered an asset, you just got to go.
I agree with most of that. I mean, I disagree with Dwight McNeil this season. I think he's been really poor this season. He's had a couple of moments around December, scored a couple of cracking goals, but he's had 2 injuries this season that have knocked him back, and obviously he's got a hell of a lot of stuff going off the pitch, which you don't blame the lad. He's a human being, and if your girlfriend, partner, whatever you want to call it, is struggling the way she's had, the stuff she's had going on, I've got no issue with the fact that his mind may well be elsewhere. Some of the other players, he's improved. Things have got better with Sean Dyche. Dom, I actually think, has at times has looked. One thing you have to say for Sean Dyche is Dom's fit and strong and playing.
Yeah.
Whereas he wasn't under Benitez and he wasn't under Lampard. He come in, looked good, but then was out again. Frank Lampard did play a more expansive style than Sean Dyche. Therefore, Dom was involved more. That's what you have to remember. Who's getting better results? Sean Dyche. So it's because if you look at the way Everton play, and this is my criticism to Dyche, and it might not be him, it might be the players, but if it isn't the players, the onus is on him anyway. If it is the players, rather, is that when we knock a long ball up to Dom and he flicks it, who's he flicking it to? Because no one's running. No one runs beyond them. So I don't know what they want him to do. I'm yet to see a centre forward have a ball knocked 70 yards up to him who can jump, cushion it on his head, pull it down on his feet, and then go off on a run and score a goal. They have to flick it, or they knock it down to someone, or if they can, they take it on the chest. The most basic thing in football when you're playing off a striker or you've got 2 centre forwards is you run past the lad whose job it is to go and win the header. And we don't have that. Decore doesn't even really do. He doesn't do it at home. He does it better away. But especially when Decore's not in the side, Dom is isolated. So I can sit here and go, I think he should be taken out. But I also look and think he's having a hard time. He scored a goal at Spurs that there was the referee on the pitch and the linesman didn't feel there was anything wrong with it until Michael Oliver did. And he scored a header against Spurs last week, which hit Jack Harrison's bollock on the way in and didn't change course and all. And that would have been 2 goals that he would have had as well in the mix, and maybe his confidence is in a different place. However, he didn't stand and he hasn't scored. So while I do think he needs to be taken out and he needs to improve his performances, I do also think just the very nature of the structure, that the way we play, we don't help Dominic Calvert-Lewin. It's no surprise that more expansive managers had better return out of him. Mm. Carlo wasn't massively expansive, but he knew patterns of play. He knew how to get the best out of players. Sean Dyche's very much a defensive manager, which is why our defence is excellent under Sean Dyche. The forward play is poor, in my opinion. That's just where we are. So naturally, our strikers will suffer. I think you could put Beto. I'm not saying Beto's great, by the way, but you could put Beto in a team that creates chances, and he'd probably score goals because he did. You know, he got double figures and stuff in Italy. I think he put the ball in the net, and I think Dom would get more goals in a team that created 4 or 5 chances a game for him, where he's lucky if he gets 1 for Everton or 2. So, but that being said, he's not playing well either. But listen, Alex, listen, he could take the decision out of our hands, mate. We offer him a contract and he doesn't want to stay. Then you do have to go, right, where you're up for sale. So, you know, let's see what happens there.
Just a quick question on the appeal.
Yeah.
Obviously, the bit that confuses me is our net spend on transfers is so low. The stadium, the talk that we were assured during when we were under special measures that the allowable losses on the stadium were permitted, and then that was changed. Where are we lose? If you take, let's imagine the stadium allowable losses were actually, they look at the appeal and say, actually, you were given the wrong guidance by the Premier League. You look at your net spend. Where else are we losing loads of money?
Stadium.
Where's all the money going?
Stadium. But
like West Ham, for example, West Ham don't own their stadium.
No.
So they're in a situation where they don't have an asset.
But they just
loan it.
They just pay, right? Yeah. Yeah. They haven't
so I just find it really difficult to, in a Premier League situation, because there was the comment earlier about who wants to look after Everton. I'm like, but surely someone must be looking at this going, we've got all this overseas investment coming in. We've got one team that's about to have one of the best stadiums in the whole of Europe, and we're forcing them out of the league because we're changing the rules on how they're able to offset money on the stadium. Like, it seems bonkers. I suppose the question I've got around this is, if the appeal is based on the fact that we're saying, no, wait a second, the way we've run the club has not breached FFP in terms of on the field, it's our off field in terms of how we finance the stadium. Yeah. Why are we even talking about getting half points or 4 points? It should be all 10 back.
No, listen, absolutely. You're absolutely right. The whole thing that that people have missed with this is PSR, profit and sustainability, FFP, however you want to dress it up, right, was put in place as a financial security to stop your club going out of business. That's the whole point of it. In the Premier League handbook, which is 346 pages, it's mentioned 8 times in the whole thing. Never once in that handbook is PSR put together with sporting advantage. It's about keeping a football club from allegedly going out of business. I mean, a Premier League club would never go out of business anyway, but that is what the design of it is for. Therefore, how can you equate building a stadium to a sporting sanction? Which, it just blows my mind how you can take points off clubs for something that is a physical thing. Now, people can go, well, your wages are high. Well, Everton's wages at the moment are around 83% of turnover, I believe. So I've been told. It doesn't matter to me if Everton's wages are 100% of the turnover. I mean, that should never be any, by the way. That is not a good, if you're a business owner and your wages, you're not making a penny ever, are you? But what I mean by that is, as long as you can get to nil with your outgoings and incomings, you should be okay. The problem, the way the Premier League have done it, this metric is there purely to keep you from going under. Yet what they're doing to Everton is jeopardising that. We are building a stadium. Now, right at the very beginning of this, Everton had a conversation with the Premier League about where the stadium build led or sort of sat in terms of the monetary outgoings. And the Premier League agreed that Everton could put it in a certain box that wouldn't affect the PSR because they are building a £750 million stadium, which is quite a lot of money. Halfway through the reporting period and halfway through the stadium build, the Premier League have now turned round, because there is an independent regulator coming over the hill, turned round to Everton and said, you can't put that there. It's got to go in this box, which puts you over your spend over. And the dead, I said this right before, Alex, the dead simple thing with this is, if Everton weren't building a stadium, would they have failed PSR? And the answer's no. So everything else doesn't matter.
I get all that, but then surely that means our first appeal or our first arguing in a case was just a disaster. I think it was. What makes it so difficult, because you read all these different things, but there was a comment. It was one thing I read or heard that was, we felt we needed to go and do something because our midfielder wasn't good enough. You know, well, what has that got to do with the stadium?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
It sounds like the way we conducted it was just a bit of a joke.
Alex, you're right. I don't think our defence was robust in the first one. Ironically, which is normally the best. We should have got Sean Dyche actually to go in where he'd been fine. But I think the problem is, and the issue you've got here, right, is that David Ornstein kind of trotted this line out as well when he was on the overlap. Everton had, for argument's sake, 27 million for Luca Dean, and instead of just playing a kid out the academy at left back, they went and bought 2 players, and that spent
instead
27
of just picking
million.
Ned out of the crowd,
that was it,
and playing him at right back.
And you're like, yeah, we did go and buy 2 fullbacks, mate, but we got 27. The way it works, rightly or wrongly, on a balance sheet is on a balance sheet, like Grant Ingles. Ironically, it's Grant Ingles doing it. You get 27. We get 27 million pound in, right? 27 million pound comes in, and Everton buy 2 players, but their outlay for those 2 players is £6 million a year. Okay, on amortisation. So we have to pay £6 million that summer. We have to pay £6 million the summer after, until we get to the fee. Okay, so the real profit on that balance sheet is £27 million in, £6 million out. Therefore, leaving a profit of 21 million. So you say to the Premier League, we just raised £20 million there back into our accounts. Don't say to us, well, you shouldn't have bought those other 2 players for 6 million, because then you'd be 6 million better off. Because that is nonsense. That isn't how football works. And this is where Everton's case is different to Forest. Forest have just come in and gone, we're buying 411 players. And there's the money, and it's gone. Now, we can argue all day whether Forest should have been allowed to, because they're trying to get up and stay up. That's a different thing. Everton are building a stadium, and that's where a lot of our money has gone to. Without that, we don't fail. You can throw all other things in, and that's just the way it is. And also, don't forget...
On that basis, surely the appeal just ends with us getting 10 points back, because it's then a question of saying, look, the defence of where we were at before is we after all the adjustable allowances, we were 19 million over. Those adjustable allowances have nothing to do with players' incomings, outgoings, agent fees, all those other things. Of course, during that period, we had massive fees in paying off outgoing managers,
which killed us as well. That's killed us as well. But yeah.
But that notwithstanding, like those 19 million are adjustable losses that we were told by the Premier League were acceptable, and you can't go through the build of a stadium and then have those things changed midway. You just it physically is impossible. You cannot have that type of situation.
Yeah.
So I just find it like I just what you're talking about with Luca Dean. Like I've had to learn about how amortization of balance sheet assets works. Like, I'm a football fan.
Yeah.
I just want to watch players
football.
Go out and run their bollocks off, and if we win, we win. If we lose, at least we lose with some effort and some a little bit of and if we take our chances, something happens. I just find it I almost feels to me, and as I've gone through all this, it almost feels to me that what the Premier League should have done is said, City, we know we can't empirically prove, but we know you guys have been up to naughtiness. Chelsea, you've actually come out and said you're naughty, but it wasn't on our watch, so it's not really the same. You've got Man United flying close to it, and all the other clubs, by the way, are the same. It's almost like there should have been a very public, we are going to draw a line here. We're going to introduce in-season accounting.
Yeah.
And let me be absolutely unequivocal. The first team that gets FFP wrong in season will get a 20-point penalty. So it's almost like and I disagree or agree with how City got to where they're at, to have a point where you've got a £100 million player sitting on the bench. I mean, I was looking at that City team going, Ake 60 million, Diaz 50 million, Edison 40 million. You know, you go through it and you think, surely you just can't see that sustainable across the season when you've got that type of talent, right? But that notwithstanding, it's almost like how can you have any credibility to take points off any club with Chelsea and City being the way they are? If you can't address that, if you can't square that off, it should just be right, everyone, there's no points now, but let me be absolutely clear. Next season, anyone falls out of line, it's 10 points straight away. No arguments. It doesn't matter if you're City, doesn't matter if you're Luton. This is the game. And then you move forward. And maybe we get lucky because it's just after the season we built our stadium, what have you. But to me, like, I get your point around not running out of money, but stadium bills should not be accountable to on-field gain. You know, to me, the way I see PSR is Leeds. Do you remember Leeds? Robbie Fowler, Robbie Keane, all these lads, and you're like, you're just going and trying to buy the league. Like, and then all of a sudden it was built on sand, and look where they ended up. That's what PSR is about. Not we want to build a stadium to house more of our amazing fans, to be able to bid for Euros and World Cups because we've got an incredible infrastructure, because it's great for the city and it's great for development and bringing great concerts and whatever else it is that Spurs have done. To me, that's actually helping teams like Everton compete with the top six. We shouldn't have those things. Should just be considered. If you want to build a stadium, you have to finance it, and it has to be your owners have to put the money down in escrow to avoid the situation where you just physically run out of money. But if they're prepared to do that, it should have no interference with the balance of the balance sheet and the operational running of the club.
I think you're absolutely spot on. I've said this before. I can't get my head round it. Other people will say, oh no, but it's whatever. I honestly cannot get my head around the fact that you are building a football club almost out your own pocket. Well, it is out of Everton's own pocket. We're the ones who, Farhad Moshiri and Everton are building that stadium. And yet they're equating bricks and mortar and barrelled roofs and all that to what goes on the pitch.
We were talking about this before. We were saying off air before with someone and saying the test, the owner's test, is paradoxical, because why do you need an owner's test to see if someone's got money and then have PSR? Surely if these people have money and you've proved they've got money, then why do you need PSR? If PSR is to stop clubs going bust, well, you said they had money. You proved they had money. You're doing a stringent test. They're doing a very stringent test on 777 at the moment. Whether you agree, whether you disagree, that doesn't matter. They are doing a very stringent test on 777 to prove if they've got money. So therefore, you either get rid of the stringent test and then have everyone have PSR. Therefore, no one should ever have any problems. Or you have a stringent test and you don't have PSR, because you've already proved, Premier League, that all these people have got money to look after themselves forever. And if clubs end up in a bad situation, that is on them. They caused this. And if that's Everton, if Everton put themselves in a situation, then that's on them. And it's on any club. It's on Birmingham City. It's on Manchester City. It's on Portsmouth. If they put themselves in a situation which means they can't afford to pay the bills and they go into administration and they drop down the leagues, that's on them. That's not on you, the Premier League because you give them that you give them 10 points because they failed PSR. You give them 9 points because they've gone into administration, and we all agree that's fair. I think we've all said that before, and I think we all probably agree on that. Let the chips fall where they may. If you're a well-run club, why should you be punished? And I'm not saying Everton are a well-run club, but why should you be punished by these rules? Because you are looking after yourselves and you are pushing yourself up the table. You get to that point where you can't push anymore. Why is that? I don't understand. I can't get my head around that in football. I just can't get my head round the idea that a football club needs to sell one of its best assets because it can't sell as many shirts as Manchester United and as Liverpool and as Manchester City and as Arsenal. Take out Man City.
That's been the way for decades, though.
But that's what I'm saying. But that's fine. Yeah, but that's fine if it's a natural thing of we are a small club and we have to sell one of our big assets because it's our plan, like Brighton. That's fine. Yeah. But it shouldn't take someone coming along going, oh, see this balance sheet here? It says you can't buy this one player because you've gone as far as you can on the game of snakes and ladders, essentially, because that's what the Premier League is now. It's snakes and ladders. And you could
6 snakes.
It is, and there's 6 snakes, and they're sending everyone down the ladders, down the snakes. Because that's where we are right now. It's not but
you're absolutely right, because you look at what this is doing is actually curtailing free market decision making. Because I appreciate he wasn't I think it was the Anthony deal that stopped this, but let's imagine that the money counters didn't allow us to go and get that lad Kudos from Ajax.
Yeah,
we get him for 12 million, and he's now a 50 million asset.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you can't spend that 12 million because you're building the stadium.
Yeah.
Okay, we've just missed out on a 50 million asset. How do we get that back? How do we miss out on players because the only way we can afford them is saying we'll give you 25 million as long as we don't have to pay you any of it in the first year. How many great players have we missed out on because we just couldn't structure the payments in a way to meet this obligation? I just think it's nuts, and I'm curious if you were to apply the same level of rules to Arsenal when they built their stadium. If you applied the same rules to perhaps the way Spurs built theirs, if you applied rules to teams that effectively walked into clubs like the Etihad, which was after the Commonwealth Games, I think, and obviously the Olympics for West Ham.
Yeah,
it's not the same.
No.
But as an Everton fan right now, for people that are A, don't care, and B, just listen to what comes out on the radio, it's like, we broke the rules, so you deserve the fine. And you're like, lads, look at our balance sheet. Look at how we've traded in players. Like,
look at our team.
Gordon out.
Look at our team.
Yeah.
3 years ago, Carlo Ancelotti was managing us, and we had James Rodriguez, Richarlison, Moise Keane. No, but I'm saying,
I feel uncomfortable with that because I'm like, Moise Keane I watched 5 minutes of Moise Keane and realised he was a bad egg from the minute I saw him, in terms of the way I was like, is this lad genuinely a footballer? Yeah, Andre Gomez. I mean, we all got fooled into Andre Gomez after that first season, and he turned out to be a bit of a dud.
Well, I think the one thing I know.
Walcott.
No, we've made Mr. Alex. Don't get me wrong. We haven't bought well. I think the Gomez thing as well, though. We did all forget that his season that he was on loan, he did have a Drissagana Gay playing next to him, doing all of the running and all of the fires putting out, and we just let Gomez get on the ball. And we had other attacking players that brought. He helped along the way. He just didn't offer enough goals, assists, whatever. No issue with that. What Walls was saying is the squad. We had a lot of players, so we could cope with certain things. We had Richarlison and Walcott, whether you liked him or not. But we had Bernard. We had players, attackers. We had options, Gylfi Sigurdsson. We have cut it. That's my thing. We've cut and cut and cut to try and stay in line with these stupid rules that aren't fit for purpose and are only fit to help teams at the top who are wealthy. That's all it is. And what we're saying is, The rest of the year, you can't have them shiny things. So if you really wanted a competitive league, you'd put a wage cap in, as well as a spend cap.
And that would be the final point in this. I think the silver lining of all this is actually the academies. Jared Branthwaite, John Stones, other players like that. I appreciate they weren't pure academy players, but it does put a focus back on the academy players now to say, A, we can't just spend for free, so we have to actually build some really good academy players. But B, geez, the next time we go and sell a Jared Branthwaite, or the next time we go and sell, that type of player, we're going to be cash rich for years to come. We'll be able to go nuts. And I think that puts some emphasis back on that. But yeah, look, I just find it difficult because when I read and listen to all this stuff, I'm like I know we haven't been particularly well run, but when I come on Toffee TV and I hear you boys say, look, no, seriously, if it wasn't for the stadium, we'd be on the right side of the line. This whole thing would be someone else's problem. You find it hard to understand which version of it is to be believed because you're like,
the basic figures tell you that though. I mean, I don't profess to be a financial expert in any way, shape or form, Alex, mate. Honestly, I don't, and I don't want to be. I want to talk about wingers. We should be buying the number 10s and midfielders who can get around the pitch, and ones that cost Everton 5 million and not 35 million because we've been terrible at bringing them in. But the other people far more intelligent than me on the numbers side just give me that thing. Is without the stadium, Everton would be PSR positive. If you look at, just do it on player trading. Player trading, Everton are third bottom in the last 5 years for net spend. Third, Brighton and Luton have spent less than Everton in net. Right? That's it. If you just want to take the accounts from the 22-23 season, that year, Everton are £25 million in the black. Chelsea are 600 million in the red for that one season. Nottingham Forest 194 million in the red for that one period. Right? It's all out. These are all facts that are out there, and this just goes on and it goes on. So the period that they're looking at, if you're player trading, which let's be honest, that's all that really matters in this, is your player trading. Everton have been almost positive for 5 seasons, and yet we are caught up in a cycle where it's negative. So once you factor in the negative cycle, what else is there then? If the wages have come down, at one stage they were 91%, now they're at 83%. If the wages have come down, if agent fees have come down, that Everton have spent, if we're not buying any players because we're positive, what's the one outlier in all of that could have possibly tipped Everton over the edge? It's the stadium. And that's it. And that we start and finish. And that's why I really...
Sounded like Perot when you said
that. Did I?
Oh, yeah, it was like I was getting goosebumps.
I wish I had a little thing. I wish I had a little moustache.
What's he going to say?
You know what I'm doing? You know what I'm doing? I'm practicing for the overlap.
I've already had... Switch it up, though.
Jamie Carragher.
Switch it up, though. When you do it, just talk for a bit and then go scratch your head and you go... One more thing, Jamie. Just go full Columbo on them.
But the reality of it all is, mate, I still get myself back to the point where a stadium that is bricks and mortar has never gone down the wing and whipped a dangerous crossing or headed one in. From as much as Sky will try to tell you that the cop does it, it doesn't really, because there's a line where the ball goes out before it hits the cop. So... It's
but also, your previous caller talking about the fact that he was watching games, in the 4-year-old in the 60s. This new stadium isn't going to be something that we throw away in 5 years.
No, exactly. Something don't forget, Alex.
For the next 60, 70, 100 years.
Benefits the Premier League. Benefits the community. Creates jobs. Oh, and it's getting used in Euro 2028. Know what I mean?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Nice one.
Top man, Alex. Take yourself. Take it easy. See you later. Bye-bye. Great call there. Right, that is us done.
Yeah.
We are going home to get boxes of chocolates and roses and all of that. Well, I mean, we're not. Because I mean,
to sit in a pub on his own.
Ned's going to sit in a pub on his own. I've given chocolates up because it's Lent now. But it's all good. Ned's going for a
You
quiz.
want your romantic?
He's going to see his family.
Team?
He's going to see his family.
The quiz family.
You know who they are. The dad and the two lads, the family. That's Ned.
Dave
Ned goes
quiz,
and does the dance.
Sheila
the ones who
quiz.
dance outside. Ned goes and sees them. He does that. Listen, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, download the SofaScore app. It's free. Thank you, everyone who called in. Thank you, everyone who joined us. We will see. Oh, Alan Stubbs. There's a video out with Alan Stubbs right now. Go and give that a little watch. He says his piece on the Premier League and Everton's situation. It is there. It's free for you to go and look right now on YouTube, but you've got to subscribe and like the video. See you later.